I welcome each of you and hope that we have a good meeting. And with the agenda that's laid out before us, I think we'll have to move things along in a timely manner. However, it would be nice to have a roll call, especially for our newer board members that are participating. I'll start it out. I'm Mary Creek from Washington County, from Hagerstown. I'm a dairy farmer. And I've been on MARBIDCO's board now for several years.
I'll just call out names. Paul?
I'm Paul Geringer, a faculty member at University of Maryland, and been on the board for a few years.
Mark? You're on mute. There we go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Mark Krebs, CFO at Farmers and Merchants Bank.
Baron?
Baron Rogers, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. I work with the small farm program.
Charlotte?
Charlotte Davis, Executive Director of the Rural Maryland Council.
Don?
I'm Don Darnall, the Executive Director of the Maryland Food Center Authority, and I've been on the board for a couple of years.
You're an original board member. So thank you for 17 or 18 years of service. John?
Hi, John Jastrzemski, retired faculty from Allegheny College in forestry. I work for the Davy Tree Company in Northern Virginia. I live in Maryland.
Great. Wayne?
Hi, Wayne Richard, Regional Vice President of Ag Lending for Horizon Farm Credit, covering our Delmarva region.
And Dan Ryder?
Yes, good morning. Dan Ryder, Maryland Forest Service. Been on the loan review committee with MARBIDCO since it started, I believe.
Yeah, you've been on a long time, Dan. Did I catch all the board members?
I think you missed AC.
AC.
Hey, yeah, what's going on, Steve? You missed me on purpose here. AC Alway here on the lower Eastern Shore, where I expect everyone to come pay me a visit. I'm in Crisfield. I represent rural economic development, and I've been on for 3 months, 4 months. I'm one of the new guys.
Great. We're glad to have you, AC. Sorry I missed you. I'm Steve McHenry, Executive Director, and I'll just very quickly have the staff introduce themselves, starting with Tina.
Good morning. I'm Tina, the Senior Accounting Coordinator at MARBIDCO.
Brittany.
Good morning. Brittany Rawlings, Financial Program Specialist with MARBIDCO.
Brian.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Brian Cadden. I'm a Financial Program Specialist at MARBIDCO.
Jill.
Hi, Jill Kabutko, Communications Associate with MARBIDCO, sorry.
Stacy.
Stacy Kabopsik, Senior Programs Manager at MARBIDCO.
Great. Madam Chair, that's everybody in the Zoom.
That's great. Thank you very much. Our first item.
I think you missed Allison and Sierra.
Uh-oh.
Sierra's watching, I think, remotely, but there's Allison. Sorry, Allison.
Yep, Allison Rowe, Financial Programs Officer and Program Coordinator.
Sierra's not in the Zoom, is she?
I am. I'm here. Sierra Chris, Financial Program Associate.
Sorry, I didn't see you guys on the screen. All right.
Okay.
We're ready to go, Madam Chair.
All right. All right. Our agenda, the next item after introductions is the review and approval of the previous minutes. It has been noted that we do have one correction on page 3. We need to add a 0 there to a value. It should read $512,000 under our bullet point year-to-date expenditures. Are there any further corrections that we need to mention and take note? Okay, hearing none, I'll approve a motion to accept the minutes with corrections.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you very much. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote. All those in favor indicate by aye or one of those little hands up signals, and
Aye.
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 opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. We'll move then to the financial, budgetary, and legislative items. Steve, would you please take over from here?
Sure thing, Madam Chair. First item is a report of the Audit Committee. And I want to thank the members of the Audit Committee. They worked diligently in reviewing the audit report and meeting with our outside auditors from Lindsay and Associates. The members this year included Mark Krebs, our chair, Mary St. Creek, and John Jay rounded out the review team. Mark, Mary, and John, would you like to convey your impression of the meeting with the auditors?
I think the meeting went smoothly. Everything seemed to be in order. Our questions were answered expeditiously. The complete transparency. I thought everything was very favorable.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Well, great. I want to thank the three of you so much. And of course, Tina Wilkins, our accounting coordinator, and Leanne on her staff that do such a great job. So thank you all so much. It's always good to get a clean audit, which fortunately we've had since the very beginning. We've never had an audit with any problem. So thank you again for that. All right, Madam Chair, moving on then to a review of the FY 24 year-to-date budget. And I think Tina's going to just quickly put the
Jill,
budget
can you give me sharing capabilities, please?
So you can see here how we're doing on our projected and actual income collections for the year. This is as of the end of December. We have now collected all of our state appropriations, by the way. So next month's budget will have the additional funds included. So we'll have another 4.1 million in core programs funding and another $2 million in next generation appropriations in addition to what you see here on the screen. But we look to be in pretty good shape. So we're 50% through the budget year on this report, just for comparison purposes, so you can see how collections are going. We did have additional reverted and carryover project funds come in higher than we anticipated. It happens every year. We approve a loan or a grant. Somebody doesn't use it, or they don't use it all. Those funds have to be reverted back into the budget. Loan principal repayment is coming in ahead of projections, which is a good thing, as is specialty loan activity. Interest income from loans is coming a little ahead of schedule, which is also another good thing, as is program income. And other collections are coming in as expected there. So looking at the operating income, we budgeted $1.7 million for the year, and including all of the revenues that we receive from a share of grant funds, for which we can typically take either 3 or 7% of the amounts appropriated. We are at just over almost 1.1 million for so far this year at 62%. So positive news on the revenues front. And now moving down to the expenditures. You can see where we are with the operational expenses. We're actually running under budget. We have budgeted $1.6 million for the year altogether, and we're a little less than half that, as you can see. And then finally, with the programmatic expenditures, with the core loans, you can see that we've had a slow year. And just to remind you all, We had to take the Mr. Biff loan program offline in mid-May due to the retirement of the last of our two senior loan officers. We were just so absolutely busy and we're short-staffed that we made a difficult decision to take it offline. We thought it was only going to be for a month or so, and it ended up being about 4 months before we could open it back up. So we had no Mr. Biff loan activity in the first quarter of fiscal 24, but things are starting to pick up. As of the end of the year, we were at 1.75 million in new loans approved. We've since approved 2 more loans. In fact, you're going to be receiving another loan to approve later today that the committee's just acted on. So we expect to be at about $3 million by the end of the month, and we should be, we think, somewhere between 6 and 8 million in the core loan programs by the end of the fiscal year. So we're getting back on track, but will not hit the $11 million that we had budgeted. In terms of the specialty loan programs, you can see what we're doing there. Again, it's been a little slow with the agriculture financing program as well as the Waterman's microloan program. It's been a little slow, but we'll see what happens this spring. We're coming into the time of year where we typically see a little bit more action, especially in the agriculture program. In terms of the specialty grant incentive programs, you can see how we're doing there. And same with the core grant programs, running at 25% there. And then next generation is running at 2.3% of what is budgeted. Allison's going to give us a more complete report on the next gen program in a minute. So all in, we are at just 18% of what was budgeted for the year as of December 31st. But that will certainly pick up here as we go forward. So happy to take any questions about the budget. All right, hearing none. Tina, we can move on to the next item. Here's the programmatic activity. Tina, why don't you run through this for us, please?
Sure. This is the programmatic activity report as of December 31st. This accompanies the budget. So these are the numbers that are in the budget. So for core loan programs, as of December 31st, we had approved 1.7 million. And there was 1.6 in Mr. Biff and 86,000 in the agribusiness equipment and working capital fund. For the specialty, we have approved 140,000. 20,000 was a Southern Maryland revolving ag loan and 120,000 in the Waterman's microloan fund. For specialty grants, we have a $5,000 SMATIC equity incentive matching grant and 199,147 in the livestock processing grant program. And then we've also approved some WIPI grants last week. Those are obviously not in here yet.
A little over $600,000 worth. You have a report on that you'll see later.
Okay. Core ag and rural business grant programs, we have 44,000 in the cold storage equipment grants, and there's 14,108 in our local government ag and cost share program. And then for next generation, we have approved 873,201 in next generation program this year so far.
All right. Unless there are questions, we can move on. And here are two statistics that you all like to track. One is what our current loan loss reserve is. So we are reserving right now at 2.55%, which is very good. Our actual losses have been a little under 2%, but this is the amount we reserve in our accounting system. And then the average loan portfolio interest rate as of the end of the calendar year was 3.779%. The good news here is this number has been inching up as we move along. You will recall that during the pandemic period, we reduced the interest rates in about 144 Mr. Biff loans to make them more market competitive and provide some relief to our borrowers during that difficult period. And we were at 4.25% in February 2020. And I think we were around 3.5% as of sometime last year. So things are gradually picking their way up. So the board has set a goal of 4% across the entire portfolio, just to make sure we have enough operating revenue going forward. So just a snapshot, but it gives you a sense of how we're doing. So I'm happy to take questions on that if there are any. Seeing none. Early loan repayments. Okay, here's just a quick look at loans that have paid off and then loans that have paid off early. So starting here with all loans paid in full by fiscal year. So we've had 240 loans pay off completely. And then you can look at that 240 in a different way. Of course, our Workhorse Mr. Biff program leads the way, but we've had a number of other programs seeing their loans pay off fully, including the Shellfish Aquaculture program. So, and Tina, just a quick question. Did all the pandemic adjustment loans pay off now, or we still have one or two remaining?
I think there's just a few left.
Okay.
Very few.
Most of those pandemic era loans that we made, they were small loans, unsecured loans for 10,000 were paid off, or almost all paid off. And then here, this is the number that we kind of track just to see what is happening with our borrowers having the capacity to pay off early. And you can see here by fiscal year since FY 2015, loan amounts and number of loans that have paid off early. So you can see right after or actually at the end of the pandemic period in the year following, with interest rates being low, people were able to refinance, and many did. So that's the report on that, unless there are questions. All right, thank you, Tina. All right, so let's move into the legislative session. Things are already ramping up in a serious way down at the State House. As you've read in the press, it's going to be a little bit of a challenging fiscal year, and it's going to get ever more challenging with each succeeding year for a few years. All the pandemic era federal support is starting to wind down now. There's still some flowing through the system, especially for infrastructure, but things are returning to a more normal cycle in terms of revenues coming in, and of course expenditures continue to increase. So the governor introduced a budget. We are in the budget, pretty close to fully funded at $1.135 billion. So that's good news. Our core funding of $2.3 million is in there, as is $435,000 for the aggregation grant program. We have another $500,000 for the WIPI program and $400,000 for livestock processing grant. So it's a pretty good budget for us. And I expect this year that there'll be a lot of attention paid on our ability to become self-sustaining after fiscal 25. So we're in the last year of our funding for the core loan program. But just to give you a quick look at the budget, the governor's budget all in for this year is $63 billion, which is about $1.2 billion lighter than last year. More significantly, this is where our money comes from, is the general fund. And the governor's budget plan has $25.8 million in it versus, I'm sorry, yes, 25.8 million in it for next year versus 27.4 for this year. So, $1.5 billion or so lighter on the general fund side. The General Assembly, as I mentioned, is looking at some out-year challenges. It looks like by fiscal 29, the state could have a structural budget deficit around $3 billion. So that is a real number, and this is primarily targeted to the general fund. So that's going to be a challenge. So the legislature this session is going to be looking a little harder at trimming back programs. There are some very modest programmatic cuts with a couple of exceptions in the governor's budget. The exceptions are in the area of higher education. The private colleges are taking a rather large cut in the Sellinger program, and the community colleges are also taking a $68 million for Sellinger, and there's a $34 million reduction for the community colleges, which is significant for them. Just some minor tweaking. The Mel Nolan Woodland Incentive Fund over at DNR, unfortunately, had a bump up for the first time last year at $1 million, and that's being reduced to $500,000 next year. But the good news in the budget, as I mentioned, is that all the programs that we wanted to see funded are well funded. The RMC's Rural Prosperity and Merit grant programs are fully funded at $9.1 million. I know Charlotte's pleased by that. And and MDA, I think, is quite well funded, with most programs being level funded. So there was one new position cut, but several other positions in the resource conservation were actually funded with PINs. That's making them full-time employees with benefits. So there's a lot to like in the budget from MDA's perspective. So happy to take any questions about our budget or the state's fiscal condition. All righty, seeing none. We do have some legislative items I do want to very briefly mention, and I would like to take a position on well, actually three things. The first is, and I think we forgot to do this at a prior meeting, I think we need to have at the ready kind of a standing legislative committee in case something comes up, so that we can move forward with input from members of, at least some members of the board. So I would like to ask that our programs committee be assigned the job of serving as a legislative committee if there are issues that we need to have some of the board take a look at. Madam Chair, if it's appropriate, we could have someone make a motion to have the programs committee also serve as MARBIDCO's legislative committee.
Is there a motion to make our programs committee also our legislative committee?
Mary, Steve Conley, I move that we follow that explanation you just made.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? Motion carries.
And let the record reflect that Steve Connolly has joined the meeting. Thank you, Steve.
Sorry for being late, but I had something else come up last minute.
Totally understand. No worries. Legislation has been introduced that is affecting the Waterman's microloan program. Unbeknownst to us, fishermen that fish in the Potomac River, in the main stem of the tidal part of the Potomac River, must obtain a fishing license from the Potomac River Fisheries Commission, which is a bi-state body. They are licensed separately from the DNR. So we had a call from a waterman in St. Mary's County wanting to get a microloan, and he did not hold a tidal fisheries license from DNR and therefore was not eligible to serve. The bill is, and the bill would bring in the folks from the Potomac River Fisheries Committee as eligible applicants for the microloan program. The bill is not drafted correctly, so I would want to seek your approval to support the bill with amendments. In other words, to put the fishermen from the Potomac River in the same posture as the other generational watermen who are eligible today, and then the beginning watermen who will be eligible after July 1st, 2025. Eligible applicants today in that program are watermen who earn a majority of their annual income from commercial fishing and can prove it by submitting 2 recent tax returns. So not all of the upwards of 5,000 licensed commercial watermen are eligible. We've been in touch with the Potomac River Fisheries Commission, and they believe that there are 380 to 400 licensed fishermen by them who live in Maryland. So the watermen licensed by the Potomac River Fisheries Commission must live in Maryland and also be licensed by them under the proposed change in law. And I suspect we should want to support that. The other thing that I think we want to do is the bill actually would not have the Potomac River fishermen be eligible for funding until July 1st, 2025. I certainly think we can move up the effective date of the bill and the effective date of the application, making eligible those commercial watermen to July 1st, 24. And then finally, we're starting, as I mentioned earlier, to see a little bit of a drop off in demand and dollars expended in the microloan program. We hit it pretty close in the first year of the program. We had no idea how much eligible loan demand we would have. So we put a $15,000 cap on the amount of the microloan. But I think we can realistically now raise that to $25,000 beginning on July 1st, 2024. And that will be important, I think, especially to young and beginning watermen, because on July 1st, 2025, those beginning watermen will now be eligible to apply for funding. So I know that might be a little confusing, but I'm happy to take a question or two about what I just said. Charlotte.
How many loans have you currently made under the existing program?
Brittany, do you have off the top of your head? I think it's 40 some.
Yeah, it's close to 40. I think it's 43.
Okay.
And we've had a number of people apply who are not actually eligible. You actually have to earn a majority of your living from commercial fishing to be eligible for a microloan. And if you're just fishing very part-time and you have other income, then you're not eligible for a microloan under the statute. So seeking your approval to support the bill with amendments to move up the effective date of the bill to July 1st, 2024, and conforming the bill to allow the Potomac fishermen to be in the same eligibility posture as the other fishermen in Maryland are, and increasing the dollar amount beginning in July, the maximum dollar amount of the loan from $15,000 to $25,000. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay, do we have a motion that would reflect the conditions that Steve just listed to change this policy?
Mary, Steve Connolly, I would
Yes.
like to, what Steve just explained to us, in a form of a motion.
Okay, thank you very much. Second?
Second, Charlotte.
Thank you, Charlotte. Any discussion, and do we need any further explanation to understand that this is a three-part motion or a three-pronged motion that we're putting forward? It'll affect this in three ways. Okay, if not, then we'll go ahead with a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we have one mark it as one opposed. It was not a unanimous vote, but the vote did carry.
Mark, did you oppose or support?
No, I was supporting. I'm sorry. I was late with my thumb.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, then we're
The vote was unanimous.
we passed unanimously. Thank you very much. I didn't realize we had a time delay there. So, okay.
Okay. There's another bill listed that was just introduced last week's House Bill 640, introduced by Delegate Natalie Ziegler, who's a farmer in Montgomery County. There's a little bit of background on this. Beginning, I don't know, 4 years ago or so, the Department of Assessments and Taxation started assessing certain farm buildings, not as agricultural buildings, but as commercial buildings. Ag buildings are generally taxed under the ag use assessment at about 5% rather than 100% for a regular commercial building. And so legislation was introduced in the last two sessions to try to restore the state of the law so that folks that are doing value-added processing on the farm, including creameries and the alcohol farm production efforts going on at wineries and breweries, as well as certain equine operations, right? Indoor riding facilities were not assessed as being agricultural, but rather as commercial, resulting in a very large property tax assessments and hence bills coming forward. So legislation's been introduced the last couple of sessions. It's been rather contentious. A work group was formed after the last session chaired by Senator Sarah Elfreth from Anne Arundel County, and it included local governments, including the Maryland Association of Counties and the Maryland Municipal League, the Department of Assessments and Taxation, of course, and various farm organizations, as well as MDA. And MDA has been represented very well by Rachel Jones, their Director of Legislative Relations, who's just done a great job advocating for value-added producers. And long story short, late in the summer, I was asked by the lead advocate for the farm alcohol groups if I would be willing to join the work group, which I've done. I attended the last two meetings. Some progress was made, but there's another effort being undertaken by the Secretary of Ag to see if we can fully restore the assessment process to what has happened previously. That discussion, I think, is happening pretty much as we speak. But it may be that the legislation that Delegate Ziegler has introduced, and there might be a Senate companion, might in fact need to move forward. So I guess my recommendation to you is to put MARBIDCO in the posture of supporting both the farm groups and MDA on a resolution of this challenging property tax assessment issue relative to agricultural structures. And if appropriate, have MARBIDCO join with the choir from the farm groups to fix the problem, given the fact that I've been party to the discussions now, and the legislators would probably appreciate MARBIDCO's support. So, so I guess my motion would be to allow me to have the discretion to support Senate Bill 640 and a companion if it's introduced in a way that aligns with the interest of the agricultural community in resolving the assessment issue.
Do we have a motion? Yeah, thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Dan Ryder.
Thank you, Dan. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you for keeping us
No.
up to date on this.
No.
thing.
Victoria, are you a no? Oh, I think she was talking to somebody. All right. That's it for legislative items right now. Again, the bill and election deadlines came up in, I don't know, a week and a half or so. So about probably half the bills that are going to be introduced have been introduced. So we will keep tabs on things, and there might be other items that the programs committee will have to take up, acting as the legislative committee. So that's it for that. If we can move on, Madam Chair, to our update on core loan programs. I briefly mentioned this earlier. We are up to 7 Mr. Biff Loan Direct loans approved thus far in this fiscal year. You all are going to see another one today. Please respond promptly to my message, and we will get that book. So we'll be at 8. Want to thank Wayne Richard on the call. We have had a very long but ultimately productive process with the farm credit system on getting the legal consent to move forward on a master loan participation agreement with the new proposed Mr. Biff Loan Participation Program. It took efforts by not only Horizon Farm Credit's attorney pushing the funding bank for the farm credit associations on the East Coast from Pennsylvania down to Florida. They have an active and direct role in how the loans are booked for each of their member associations, and that is Ag First Bank. So Ag First Bank's legal folks had to also approve and sign off on the master loan participation agreement, as did MARBIDCO's assistant attorney general. Ag First Bank actually hired outside legal counsel to study the issue and resolve a kind of a thorny challenge related to how different kinds of farm credit loans are dealt with. Basically, to keep it simple, mortgage type loans versus smaller operating and equipment type loans. So long story short, we have a resolution, we have a plan, and now we're doing some final legal review on our end, and then we will update you as to where we are. Now, here we are. We have the direct loan program open and functioning, so we don't want to turn that off, because we do want to end up by the end of the fiscal year at something over $6 million in new core loans approved. But I think what we'll do, unless there's objection by this body, is we'll plan to roll out over the next 2 or 3 months, assuming we get final approval, the loan participation program with the farm credit associations, because their master loan participation agreement will be different in form than what we will use with other commercial lenders. So we will want to, I think, roll out and start working with our farm credit associations, of which there are 3 in Maryland: Horizon Farm Credit, Colonial Farm Credit, and Farm Credit of Virginia, serving the 2 Western Maryland counties. And then do some significant outreach and educational efforts with all of our partnering lenders. We've partnered with 26 commercial banks thus far, including the 3 farm credit associations. So I think hopefully by the beginning of the next fiscal year, we should be up and running fully. Things go as I think they will, now that we've gotten over this big hurdle of getting the master loan participation agreement approved by the Farm Credit System. So I'm happy to take questions. Oh, Wayne, you want to weigh in here with your perspective?
Yeah, I think you hit on it pretty good, Steve. I think I think we both say this is taking way longer than we had hoped it would, but progress is certainly happening, and certainly see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think we're getting real close. I'm actually meeting with folks of ours today to work on internal processes and procedures that we'll need. So yeah, I think we're in a good place and we're getting close.
Right. I want to thank you for your help. I want to thank Doug Durkin, your attorney, who really stepped up there late in the fall and just really put us, just devised a way to move for us to move forward, which is great. All right. So that ends the discussion on Mr. Biff. We've had just one agribusiness equipment and working capital loan so far this year, and we've had none in the forestry and vineyard hop yard loan category. So we can move on now then to core and specialty grant program updates. And my colleague Stacy Kabasic has that report.
Hi, everyone. I'll start with the livestock processing equipment grant that closed, I think, it closed in December. We ended up approving 9 applications. The total amount we approved was $199,147. This grant program, it's a 50% matching grant up to $50,000 for USDA inspected slaughter facilities and for USDA inspected blue catfish processing. And it also has a component of 50% up to $20,000 for other USDA inspected, custom exempt, and mobile processing. So we did 2 slaughter, USDA inspected slaughter facility or blue catfish processing, and the other 7 were for other USDA custom exempt or mobile processing. You also received a report on the Maryland Wood Products Industry Equity Incentive Grant. Our loan review committee just approved these grants last week. We received $500,000 in funding for fiscal year 24 to offer these grants. And in addition, the Maryland Department of Natural Resources provided an additional $100,000 that we could use to fund especially value-added product projects. We used $93,000 of that for grants and $7,000 for administrative costs. For this program, we match up to 25% of the total project cost with a maximum grant up to $50,000. We did say that a value-added project could get more than $50,000, although because of how popular and oversubscribed this program was, we did limit everyone's grants to no more than $50,000.
Hey, Stacey, I'll stop you for a second. I want to give a shout out to Dan Reiner. We had a pre-review committee consisting of MARBIDCO staff and DNR Forest Service staff. Dan coordinated the effort and developed a pretty nifty review form. And I really want to thank Dan and his colleague, as well as Stacy and Brian on our team for just the terrific job they did in the analysis and review. So Dan, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it.
Glad to do it. I just followed what I've learned from working with MARBIDCO over all these years. Just added the word forester and logging and all that. It was pretty easy. But yeah, this is a really cool program. I think if we can keep it going, we're going to see it grow in popularity each year.
Right.
Yeah, so just to finish up, we did receive 24 applications. 5 either were denied or withdrew before as part of an initial review. Then this advisory group got together. We used this rubric that Dan had created to rank the projects. And there were 19 applications. 17 were approved by the loan review committee for a total funding of $681,241. So the $93,000 DNR funds, they were used to supplement 7 projects that the advisory group agreed were value added and covered about 36% of those grants received. And the report, it shows you how much each applicant receipt is being awarded, and then a description of the project so that you can read more about what we're funding. And then finally, I think cold storage was already mentioned. We approved 26 projects. And Tina said we funded $44,030, and we're still in the process of just fully dispersing those funds.
Thank you, Stacy. Any questions for Stacy?
Did you want me to talk about the MDA RFSI grant, or are you going to cover that later?
I think you can talk about that now.
Okay, so as you know, we have the Certified Local Farm Enterprise Food Aggregation Grant Program that we get funding for. This year, we are going to use those funds to partner with the Maryland Department of Agriculture. They received $3.8 million from USDA to offer grants through what's called the Resilient Food System Infrastructure Program. They're going to offer equipment-only grants and infrastructure grants. And infrastructure grants can range from 100,000 up to 3 million, but they do require a non-federal match that for 50% of the project cost, or if the applicant qualifies as is underserved, the match could be reduced to 25%. So our review committee met and voted to approve allowing us to use our Certified Local Farm Enterprise Fund to be used as the non-federal match for this MDA program to leverage these federal funds. So we are going to have the application up on our website February 1st. We will be providing a grant up to $50,000, 100% match for historically underserved farmers, ranchers, or other businesses that qualify under SBA. The SBA category of small disadvantaged business, women-owned small business, or veteran-owned small business. For all other applicants, the grant is a 50% match up to $50,000. And then if the applicant is a local government, rural regional council, or county school system, the maximum award could be $400,000. So that's similar to the way we were running our grant program before. The eligible applicants can be an ag marketing group, like an LLC, or a legally organized farm cooperative. They have to be including at least 4 certified local farm enterprises. They can be a wholesale distributor that's selling to an institution, but aggregating from at least 4 certified local farm enterprises, or a public entity like a county government, municipality, community college, university, county school system that's either purchasing from or facilitating the aggregation from at least 4 certified local farm enterprises. And these projects all have to be related to institutional or wholesale buyers that are going to be, so that's in line with our existing grant program, and they have to meet all the MDA application requirements.
So it was fortunate that we're in a position to provide some matching funding to allow applicants to the USDA funding RSFI program to have some matching funding available, very much in line with the state's effort to have state institutions purchase at least 20% local food. Because that was the original genesis of our aggregation grant program, was to support wholesale institutional market development for small and medium-sized local farmers. So, Mary, did you have a question?
Yeah. How is this program working? Are there people that are benefiting from this program? Are the institutions using it? Are they buying from the certified farm enterprises?
Stacy, what's your impression?
So I think it's been slow going, and it's kind of difficult. Like, my impression of our grant program is we want some commitment from the institution or the wholesale distributor that they are going to buy, but it's hard for the farmers to get that commitment until they sort of have these grant funds in place and can put the infrastructure in place. So there's been that problem. I think MDA is starting to get in the reports from the institutions on what their progress is in meeting their 20% procurement goal. I think the last round we did, we had 3 pretty good applicants, Garrett Growers out in Western Maryland, around the Bay Farmers Alliance on the Lower Eastern Shore, working with UMES, and a nonprofit called Our Space World that works with small and disadvantaged farmers in Prince George's County and on the Western Shore. But some of that is that they are selling to food banks. That's been like a way for them to sort of break into this wholesale market. But I think the idea is, once they get their equipment, they use the grant money for the equipment, they get the infrastructure in place, and then they can broaden that from the food banks to school systems or to other, to some of the big wholesalers.
AC's got a question.
Yeah, I sat in on the MDA's information and introductory meeting last week. So I'm following up with MDA to get more answers to some questions that I've got some individuals who are seafood processors and sellers. They've got some questions, so I've got to find out more about that to follow up. But there's definitely some interest down here on the Lower Eastern Shore.
Very good. All righty, John.
Yes, Stacy, Dan, and others, thanks so much for the report on the WIPI status. I found that very informative, and I like the diversity of offerings in the applications. I think it's a good breadth and across a lot of the states. So you're getting really good traction here. My compliments.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And I want to thank Dan again, because Dan was out promoting the program at every venue. So thanks to Brian and Stacy and Dan for their good work. And I should give a shout out to our aggregation grant committee, Paul and Don and Sarah O'Haran and Karen Fedor from MDA, as well as our newest member, AC. So thank you, committee. Appreciate that. All righty. Moving on then to, Tina will want me to not forget, we need to do our annual approval of the Maryland Farm and Harvest, Maryland Public Television video series. I hope all of you watch it every Tuesday night, and the response has been quite favorable. It wins all kinds of public television awards, which is amazing. It's the highest rated locally produced Maryland Public Television show. So hopefully our non-farming citizenry is learning a little bit about how agriculture functions and operates. We have annually provided a sponsorship of $35,000 for the television series. Other farm groups as well do as well, and MDA provides some funding also. So the motion would be to approve a grant or a sponsorship of $35,000 for the Farm and Harvest TV program.
Do we have a motion to continue our support for that program?
I move we continue to support the Maryland Farm and Harvest videos series in the amount of $35,000.
I second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is specialty loan programs and related grants. We've already talked about the Waterman's microloan program, Shellfish Aquaculture, There's been no action this year in the remote setting aquaculture program. We have the new Maryland Oyster Shucking House loan program. We've been getting a number of calls. Stacy's actually the lead on that. I think what we're finding is that some of the potential applicants are having some challenge with the requirement that at least one full-time job be created or retained for each $25,000 in loan funding that's provided. So that may be a little bit of a challenge for folks. Stacy, any other observations you would make about that program?
No, we have one application and, I mean, that's it. One potential project that could be coming in. But yeah, I think the job requirement related to the loan amount is difficult, and because, you know, what you need to borrow isn't really something that's related to how many jobs you have, but they're limited for 25,000 for each job that they're going to create or retain.
I would note that we've offered up our agribusiness equipment working capital loan program as a complement to this program that would help potential applicants. I don't think we have any such situations in the works, but we were sort of anticipating there might be a problem with that job creation retention element. So just FYI. All righty. We have up and running now our new Maryland Livestock Processing Loan Program, which is largely funded by USDA. We've had some inquiries. Allison, do we actually have a loan application in, or is it sort of tentative at this point?
Yes, we do have an application that we're working through.
Okay, and this is for livestock processing?
Yes, it's for the catfish processing.
I'm sorry, blue catfish, right.
Yep.
Getting a little bit of traction there. We have a $5 million fund, including MARBIDCO's contribution of 1.3 million, matching the 3.8 from USDA. We've already talked a little bit about the one equity incentive grant that we've had so far this year. So that concludes that section, unless there are questions about any of our specialty loan program. Hearing none, let's talk now about our two next generation programs. Allison Rowe leads that effort, and I think she's prepared a report for you, which she, I think, will be able to share on the screen. You need permission to share, Allison? There you
No,
go.
I think, can we see that?
Yes.
Okay, let me shift it a little bit. Okay. So just going through real quickly, on the Next Gen program, this is for the regular, Next Gen program. So we processed 3 applications this year. We've approved 2, and we have 1, hopefully for later approval today. Year to date, we haven't, had any termination or releases yet. I do have a request. I think that it's coming, so that's good to see that we'll be starting to get repayments this year. Looking at closed and pending closing, we have 42 projects that 36 of them have closed, and we're pending 6. And then acreage preserved and to be preserved is at a little over 4,200 acres. And then we always provide a chart showing where the projects are and the acreage that's being preserved by county. And then you'll see the totals at the bottom. And then for small acreage, we have received, I think, 1 application that came through saying, but it actually is eligible for Next Gen. So that was moved back to the Next Gen program, but we're definitely getting a lot of conversation. Unfortunately, we just haven't received an application this year to process. So we still have the 4 that have closed and the 100 acres that we've preserved. And then that just shows where the projects are in the counties and the acreage preserved on the small acreage. Does anyone have any questions?
Dan, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. Thanks. I'm just curious. Seems like it's really popular in Frederick and Washington. But why is that, would you say? Is it just better marketing or?
Outstanding local ag land preservation administrators, especially in Frederick County. I just was informed the person is retired, but she has just been amazing in putting together and lining up and like figuring out how to put every request in some sort of queue where in her mind the county was able to in many cases put those next gen deals using critical farm funding in the short term into the mouth queue longer term. So the county government, in terms of the ag board and the county staff in Frederick County, has just been amazing. Washington County was very active early on. Probably hasn't been quite as active lately. I know they had a retirement and a changeover there. Yeah, the county ag land preservation administrators are critical to this program. They're sort of the front line in taking those requests in. They actually have a lot of work to do prior to us getting an application. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Yep. So DNR has a easement program dedicated to forest land. It's called the Forest Legacy Program. It's not available across the state. Much like Rural Legacy, we have priority areas. So properties within those areas would be eligible. Should I have our legacy coordinator work with Allison or who?
Well, here's the issue, Dan. This program is all about getting beginning farmers on land that is being transferred. The ownership is being transferred to them.
Mm-hmm.
So woodland is certainly eligible. We actually had approved an original next gen deal in Allegheny County a few years ago with a gentleman who was buying a 95% wooded property. Unfortunately, he was working at the Verso paper mill, and he lost his job, and therefore he couldn't move forward with the property purchase. But and Rural Legacy was going to be the permanent easement holder in that scenario. So that's the issue: is you have to have a property transferring to new ownership, and there has to be a commercial lender that's willing to be involved in the deal as well.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay.
I got it. Yep. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. But happy to talk with any DNR staff about the program. All right, Allison, you have more to go, or are you done?
Nope, that should be it. If there's no more questions.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Nope.
All right. We were rolling right along. We're ahead of schedule. Project acceptance reports approval. Tina, were you going to put that on the screen? We have 47 projects that were approved. That's not it. That were approved since the last meeting. Tina, there you go. Since the last meeting. And what we do is we get all of these project approvals into the official record. So we need a motion to approve the acceptance report.
Okay, do we hear that motion?
I move we accept the loans as presented. We move we accept the loans, grants, and easement option purchases as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And by the way, all of these projects have been approved and many have already been funded. It's just getting it into the official record. Okay, now on to an update from me on some things that are going on. Happy to report that I successfully concluded my year as president of the National Council of State Agricultural Finance Programs in December. We actually had our first face-to-face national conference in Raleigh, North Carolina, back in the fall, for the first time since before the pandemic. So things are getting back to normal. But I thought everything went very well, and I'm kind of happy to be relieved of the duty. We have a part-time staff person, but it's mostly a volunteer effort. And I actually also concluded 6 years on the NCO board, and I termed off. So I'm now free of that duty, but I thought it all went very well. Kind of related to that, I should tell you, I've met with the secretaries of agriculture from Delaware and Virginia about the possibility of establishing a MARBIDCO-like enterprise in those two states. The reality is, I think in both cases, they're going to look to stand up and hopefully fund something akin to the Mr. Biff Loan Participation Program. I think that model offers the best utility for them because it would require the least amount of staffing in order to effectuate those programs. So things are kind of on hold with further discussions with Virginia and Delaware, pending our getting the loan participation program up and running. Interestingly enough, I was on a call last week with a public-private partnership organization from Pennsylvania called Team PA. And it's an entity chaired by the governor of Pennsylvania and a private sector leader. And they've actually invited me to make a presentation to that group in about a month to explain how MARBIDCO functions. So they're seriously looking at what can be done in Pennsylvania from a public sector ag finance perspective. So states around us are very interested in what we do here in Maryland around agricultural finance. And so we'll see what comes of all that activity. It's taking a little bit of my time, but I'm certainly happy to help out our neighboring states. Moving on, I just wanted to say that we're very close to ending our formal involvement with the Maryland Market Money Program. You recall a year ago or so, you asked me to set up a new nonprofit organization to take over the intermediary role, which we did. The Farms and Food Access for Resilient Maryland Foundation has been created. We since hired Vanessa Finney, who some of you know from the nursery landscape greenhouse world, to be the part-time chief administrative officer of the Farm Foundation. We have one remaining contract, funding contract with the Montgomery County government, which actually ends at the end of February. And so everything has now been transferred over either to the Farm Foundation or MDA, which has taken on a new responsibility as a fiscal agent for the Maryland Market Money Program. And SMATIC, as the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland, continues to administer the Maryland Market Money Program. But our formal involvement, other than me continuing to donate my time to the Farm Foundation Board of Directors as an advisor now, I stepped down as chair early in the fall. Our time spent on the Maryland Market Money Program is rapidly ramping down. And I think we left things in a very good place in terms of how that program hopefully can move forward. So just an FYI on that. And Steve Connolly, thank you for all that you're doing in your shop to help out with that. And finally, just a quick report on the Maryland Food System Resiliency Council. You'll remember the year before last year, I actually participated, I think, in 44 separate meetings of that group or its subcommittee during the year. And I think I missed 3 or 4 meetings while I was on vacation. So just a very labor intensive group. Thankfully, things have sort of settled down a little bit. I do continue to serve on 2 committees. I'm actually missing a committee meeting this morning, but the council has now been formally created sort of in perpetuity and is housed at the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, who staffs the group. So it's primarily concerned with both food distribution issues as well as food waste, but they have delved into ag production and processing issues, which is why I continue to need to be there. Farm Bureau has a representative. The Department of Ag, of course, is very much involved in that. But that group continues to meet and has some pretty good legislative support behind it. So that is really all I wanted to talk about, unless anybody has any questions about anything I could just covered, or any other boards or commissions or task forces that you would have a question about, you think I might know something about. All right. Then moving right along, Madam Chair, we're about to go into our annual meeting. Just to recap for the new folks, our bylaws require us once a year to have our annual meeting. What we typically do is we take stock of the preceding calendar year. We sort of plan for the coming calendar year by developing an operational plan, and that helps us to provides guidance to us as we put the FY25 budget together. But we also have the election of our officers for the coming calendar year. And we're very delighted that we had a really active nominating committee this year, consisting of Charlotte Davis and AC Alray. They talked to everyone they thought was important, and they have a report, I believe. Charlotte, you want to provide your report?
Yes. So I want to thank AC for being a part and assisting with the committee meeting and our work. We surveyed the officers and their willingness to continue to serve, and we met last week to review that and make the recommendation of retaining our current slate of officers. So that would be Mary Shank-Creek as chair, John Jastrzemski as vice chair, Mark Krebs as secretary treasurer. And so I move adoption of the presented slate of officers.
Madam Chair, you're looking for a second.
I second. Yes. Steve Conley.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of accepting the slate of officers, say aye.
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 Hi, this is Jill. I missed the first.
That's me.
Charlotte.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Charlotte.
And I want to thank our officers for their continued willingness to serve, and thank you much, and look forward to working with you in the next year.
And I too want to thank the officers. They've been a delight to work with from the staff perspective. You're all awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, can I say that you're willing to perhaps stay on a little bit longer as well on the board? Assuming that.
Yes, you can say that.
Yeah.
Charlotte changed my mind. Very good. I enjoy this.
Thank you, John. All righty. So we do need to adopt the operational plan for the coming year. You've been provided a draft of that document, as well as some statistics from the preceding calendar year. It was a very busy year. As you know, the first half of the year, we were very short-staffed, and we had a lot going on. We welcomed 2 new staff members last summer, Brittany Rawlings and Brian Cadden. Both of those individuals have just been great. And we brought on Sierra Christ, few months before the year started, and she has just been great. Just wrapped up Farm Credit University, so congrats to Sierra. It was a very productive year despite all the challenges. Fiscal 23 was a record-setting year in many respects, as we talked about at the last meeting. So things are kind of hopefully getting more back to normal relative to our capacity to deal with the 20 programs that we now offer. 20 separate financing programs that we now offer, which is amazing. We had 18 last year. So you have in front of you the draft operating plan. I provided last year's plan just as a reference in case you were wondering. I've added in the new programs that came on board in this fiscal year, including the new livestock processing loan program, the new oyster shucking house loan program, in addition to everything else we've been doing. I should tell you too, we've been having conversations with some county governments about both providing equity instead of matching funds. I had a conversation with the Tri-County Council of Western Maryland last week. They might provide a grant to establish an equity instead of matching fund in Allegheny, Garrett, and Washington counties, which would be helpful. And then Howard County is looking at doing a bunch of things relative to helping beginner farmers in a county where land prices are just through the roof. So we continue to be creative in trying to find resources to help our producers in many creative and innovative ways. So anyway, you have the calendar, the operational plan for calendar year 24 in front of you. We generally adopt a motion for that plan.
So do we hear a motion to adopt this very ambitious plan?
Move we adopt the fiscal year 24 operation plan as presented.
Just a correction, calendar year.
Calendar year.
Calendar year.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you very much, Charlotte and Dan. Any questions? Okay, we'll move to a vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you, staff, for all of your efforts. It's tremendous amount of work that you undertake and just remarkable how much you're accomplishing. Thank you.
And I want to echo those comments from my staff, and I want to and also say we really appreciate the support of the board. So thank you. All right, I'm trying to figure out where we are here. And I think, Madam Chair, we are up to the point now of thinking about our next meeting in late May or early June. We have found that using a doodle poll is probably the best way to actually set the date. So be on the lookout for that. We're still in open session, so does anybody have any announcements or anything they want to share for the benefit of the board or people that are watching out in the greater public?
Steve, can you hear me? This is Victoria. I just wanted to thank your staff and for all you did at the Waterman's Show. Our 49th annual East Coast Commercial Fishery and Aquaculture Trade Show was the 12th, 13th, and 14th. And it was outstanding. I've had many emails, many phone calls, comments from different people that attended the sessions on Saturday, and they just said it was great. They got a lot of things answered, and they got a lot of questions, and they're in a much better place now about a lot of things. So thank you very much for attending, and we hope we see you next year.
Great. Yeah, always enjoy coming down to Ocean City in early January.
Yeah.
See the many, many watermen and aquaculturists that are there. So thank you for having us, Victoria.
Oh, thank you for being there. It makes all the difference in the world when you're there and can answer questions in person. So,
And it's a shame I didn't win the truck.
yes, a man that had been buying a ticket for 17 years. So he spent
Aw.
$1,700 and he got a truck.
Wow.
Stuart Mumford, he's from Bishopville, Maryland.
Huh.
So he won the truck.
Interesting. Yeah, they have a truck raffle in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
$100 a ticket.
Pardon?
All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Is there, Madam Chair, anybody else have any thing for the good of the order before we go to closed session?
Okay. All right, then I think we're ready for a motion to move into a closed session.
Madam Chair, I move we go into closed session to consider matters that concern A, proposals for a business or industrial organization to locate, expand, or remain in the state. B, to consider the investment of public funds. C, to consult with staff, consultants, and other individuals about pending or potential litigation. And D, to discuss the performance evaluation of an employee over whom this public body has jurisdiction and to adjourn the meeting thereafter.
I second it.
Thank you. Thank you, Victoria and Charlotte. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I think that motion carries. So we will adjourn our public session and move into our closed session at this time.